Well, hello and welcome back to the Calorie Deficit University podcast. My name is Alexis. I am the show's host. Thank you so much for tuning in. And today we are going to be talking about what happens when people believe a calorie deficit just doesn't work. Because this is a common discourse online. This is where all of my 1-star or no-star reviews for the podcast getting trolled happens online. So if you do like the podcast and you've enjoyed listening to it so far throughout time, please go ahead and give us a 5-star review because it's just me, guys. It's just me, a small business owner. So please, would be lovely to have support. But generally, people either don't like the podcast because they do not believe in calorie science, or they don't like my language use, which it says not safe for kids, guys. Okay? Shouldn't be listening to any type of diet talk in front of your child. But I digress. Here's the thing. I firmly do believe and have seen and have, of course, anecdotal evidence to support this, but that we've all been there in calorie science denial. I wouldn't have built a platform off of it and my personal experience with it and educating it if I didn't understand that or know that. That's the point. Calorie science, and now apparently science altogether, is denied all the time. In the magic land, okay, in the magical land of calorie deficit denial, it is a warm and cozy place, okay, that convinces us of small comforts and prevents us from facing reality, because reality, accountability, understanding calorie science is not very cozy. It's not like the first and most fun thing people are excited to do. I will be the first to admit that. But this message, this understanding, even if you're like a calorie science lover and expert, you will still get a lot of benefit from this episode, mainly existentially, but of course logically as well. But this message is to those of you out there who think that a calorie deficit just doesn't work, okay? Because I don't want you to feel defeated, and I don't want you to feel like you're being lied to out there by some very good evidence-based teachers. They really are trying to help you. Sometimes their messaging is really bad, okay? I could spend the time going into the scientific evidences of proving you wrong. I could go into the application of how we've been able to study this worldwide in real life through real-time application through starvation and famines. But I really don't think that that would help you understand why you're getting to the conclusion that you are of overall general science denial, but specific calorie deficit science denial. The reality is a calorie deficit is the only way to lose excess body fat. The means of which you do are usually individualistic to you. How you get into a calorie deficit, of course, is wildly debated. You have the keto craze, the carnivore dogmas, the GLP-1 purists, and the green drink guzzling girlies. But at the end of the day, if you are losing weight, if you're losing excess body fat, it's because you're eating less calories than what your body calorically needs to maintain that physique. Okay? That's it. That's a dumbed down version of it. So if you're like, but what I did worked, great. Let's count up the calories and I'll show you the math of how you got there. I'm going to say something, and I've written it down, so I am reading from a script because I really care about this specific subject, okay? So if you're watching me on now Spotify, hello, and YouTube, I am reading, yes. I'm going to say something that is very difficult to accept, but I get very tired of people on the internet who say that anyone who teaches about a calorie deficit is fat phobic. It does get tiring to be demonized all of the time when all you're trying to do is help, or just simply that I don't understand what you're going through, that I simply don't understand what it means to have PCOS, or maybe I simply don't empathize enough, or that I'm holding a moral value over calories and applying them to your physical body. While I disagree, with that sentiment entirely, I find it to be very divisive and just factually untrue. My challenge to this rhetoric is that it is wildly invalidating, okay? This story, this narrative that you're spouting, it's wildly invalidating to the very real and lived experience of the millions of people who have actually died from starvation, which is the lack of a significant enough, a good amount of calories to keep them alive. Malnutrition, okay? And what do we say for them then, if that's the narrative that we're going to spin? How I usually respond to this type of rhetoric is when someone says that, calorie science isn't real and whatever spouts after that, I say, let me come and live with you for an entire week. I'd be happy to. I'll pay for the flight. I'll drive down there and I will cook your meals for you and I will track your food for you and I will show you and I will literally manufacture the perfect environment of nutrition for you. You won't have to lift a finger for an entire week and we'll see what happens. In just a week, we'll see what happens. And no one's taken me up on that offer yet. Usually no one wants to talk to me after that. And I understand why. But that paints a picture of exactly where that person is truly coming from. It is harsh, but here we are. It's much harder to look within ourselves and take personal responsibility for our actions. It's much easier to blame the boogeyman. It's much easier to blame external factors instead of contextualizing those external factors and how they could be impacting your behavior, impacting your mental health, impacting your sleep quality, but understanding that they don't change the caloric science, the caloric value of your food. It's very hard to take the responsibility for that. Like I said, it's much easier to just believe a story, believe a lie that helps reinforce your own narrative and giving you a way out, a scapegoat, instead of looking inside of yourself and trying to get to know yourself better, understand yourself, take care of yourself better. So there is nuance. So of course, don't get it twisted. We are not set up in our current food environment, movement environment to have healthy metabolic outcomes, okay? How it's incentivized, all of those things, we're just not set up for a happy, healthy life, okay? So there are existential threats, there are systemic threats that we all have to deal with in our own kind of levels of opportunity and privilege and access to resources, okay? But two things can exist at the same time. We can validate those limitations as they are, and we can also take personal accountability for the things that we haven't done. Both can be true. Calorie science doesn't have to be complicated because it really isn't. It is simple, but that doesn't mean that it isn't hard. Okay, we complicate it. It is hard, though. I will validate. I find the best outcomes with nutrition science and application is to approach calories and food in general from a neutral perspective as much as possible, or no moral perspective at all. And I put in my notes, but what does that really mean? What I find is people kind of go back and forth between trying to understand themselves, of being like, well, I don't think I have a food addiction. But yet I think about food all the time, and I think about planning my meals and what I'm going to eat next and what sweet treat I'm going to have. And I can't have this in the house because I overconsume it. And when I hear somebody talk, usually for the vast majority of people who find themselves to be overweight or be overweight for the majority of their life, and they haven't had some cataclysmic event that caused a reaction to overeating, right? So for a lot of people, gain weight after a death or after something crazy that happens in their life. That's an emotional human response to find comfort in food. But what I find is when I hear people talk, food does control them. Food literally is in the driver's seat of their life, and not in a way of survival, but in a way of cope. And so looking at your life, trying to remove the cope of food and actually finding healthier avenues like therapy, journaling, meditation, reading, other things, right? Instead of using a thing, okay? I'm not going to say a substance, but a thing to try and cope, it becomes really difficult for people. And to me, I'm not a licensed professional to say that you would have food addiction, but those are obsessive tendencies and reliance on something that is hurting your health by over-consuming, okay? And so when I say let's try and approach nutrition science from a no moral application, from a neutral perspective, that there are no good foods, no bad foods, that there's a caloric value, a mathematical value, a nutritional value, a macro and micro value of food that can be applied in a very optimal, clean, clinical way, I find that that's one of the better avenues to finding food freedom. That you start to change your interaction and perspective of food. And so you kind of start to decenter food from your life. Okay. Hopefully I'm communicating that well, and you'll get this through the rest of the episode. So if you're tracking your calories diligently, and you think you're tracking your food accurately, but you're not getting anywhere, right? All your boxes are checked off for more than just 5 days, okay? And it's not the weekends that are fucking you up, or it's not the vacation, or like you've eliminated all these variables and you're like, dang, there must be something going on. And I'm saying like you don't have extreme external stressors, you don't have a chronic metabolic condition that you're managing with medication, like say there's nothing, no external factors that are going on, and you've removed all the factors and you're like, this whole tracking thing just doesn't fucking work. I hear you. I've been there. Here's the thing. The answer is not what you want to hear. And it certainly wasn't what I wanted to hear when I was first learning how to track my own food. Back when, a decade ago. Back so long ago now. You just simply don't know how to track your food. And that's okay. That doesn't make you bad. That doesn't make you wrong. It's okay. It's a skill. You just have to get better at it. You just have to practice. And you're not alone in this. We have so much research showing that humans are just really bad at tracking their food. They're really bad at self-awareness. And we see this not only in food, but in finances. We see it in like being able to peer review or grade your own papers or have just good introspection. It's hard. Okay. It's not popular. It's not common. It's not a skill set that we easily come by. It takes work. Okay. And that's okay. If you are good at tracking your food, that is what actually makes you special and unique. Okay. So let's go over some very simple ways to get better at tracking your food. And I'm actually going to read directly from the instructions that I give my own clients. So clients, if this is your first time hearing this, sounds like you didn't read anything I sent you ever. I'm being silly. Okay. I'm not going to be mean to my clients. Literally all of my clients are babies and baby girls that I protect with my life. And I love them so much, and I would never let anyone come for my clients, so don't, because they're amazing. They are the hardest workers I know, and they bust their butts, okay? And they're doing what they're supposed to be doing because I'm teaching them how. Number 1, making sure that you've tracked all your food measurements consistently. So what I mean by that, I find the whole debate of like measuring raw versus cooked is not a productive conversation for people who are just not bodybuilders. If you're a bodybuilder, that's a good conversation for you. Not here. Tracking your food, just cooked measurements, and having consistency in that is fine and good. So when you go into your app and you're logging chicken breast, do not just type in chicken breast. You literally need to be as specific as possible for the macro accurate amount. So going in and saying cooked chicken breast in grams and then weighing it out cooked, on your food scale, on your plate, to try and have consistency from the app to what you're actually eating. I see that as probably one of the most common mistakes, is like doing raw blueberries, like, or fresh blueberries versus frozen blueberries. Like, that is a very common application mistake that I see screw a lot of people up with their calorie amounts. Using grams as much as possible. This can be picked usually in as an option to track. So like grams versus ounces and milliliters and all that jazz. Don't just assume things, okay? If you're eating an apple and you track a small apple, that's not accurate. Wrong. You wouldn't pass the Alexis test. How many grams of a Honeycrisp apple did you eat? Because you're not eating the core. I know you're not. So if you do that every day consistently with 3 different fruit options, so say you said, I ate a small apple, I had a banana, a medium-sized banana, and I had frozen blueberries, but I actually track them as fresh blueberries, that's maybe a 300 to even could be 400 calorie discrepancy that you've fucked up. See what I'm saying? Kind of gets, you're like, ooh, that's a good point. That's a good point. So another thing would be try to keep your meals simple. So it's easier to just go ahead and simplify your meals down to whole foods until you get better at complex tracking, like with recipes and things like that. It just makes it way easier and a less headache for you. But with that being said, of course, I want accuracy overall. A estimated track is better than no track at all. So I'd rather you estimate something than just completely skip over, glaze over, and not track it at all, because then that's still a data point that I could go back and be like, maybe this was actually not accurate. And, oh, yep, I did my own little search and that isn't accurate. Oops. And that will help us clarify the data further. Eating the same foods over and over and over again, so that you can start to learn and actually absorb the information, so that you're learning portion sizes, so that you're seeing the difference between what you normally put on your plate and what you should be putting on your plate long term. Don't use measuring cups. People who bake professionally don't use measuring cups either. They use grams because it's a science. And if you mess it up, your cupcakes are not going to turn out good. So using your food scale is priority 1. And the last thing I will say for that is the more accurately you track, the better the data, the more accurate the data will be that we will have to collect and reflect on. And of course, doing it consistently. If you only track your food 3 days a week, you might as well have just like not tracked it all. Because that's just inconsistent, not contextualized data across the board. That's not enough metrics to have to even know what the consistency of your diet looks like. Period. And that's it. Okay. The second thing that could be going on of like, oh my God, I'm tracking my calories, but nothing is working. The scale isn't going down. You just aren't being honest with yourself about how much you eat. And that's okay. Why would we need to be? It's like the same thing of like most alcoholics are dramatically unaware of just how much they really are drinking until they sober up. Because it's one of those things that kind of tumbles and tumbles and builds and builds until you start to notice it. No one is like, I just woke up one day and all of a sudden I'm like 100 pounds heavier. Usually you notice like year after year, you're gaining 2 pounds a year. That's it. 2 pounds a year in 10 years is 20 pounds. Yikes. That's not an injury. That's not an event. That's not a vacation. That's not an illness. That's just normal reality in life for a lot of people. 2 pounds gained a year. 2 pounds lost a year would still be 20 pounds lost in 10 years. But that's how people do it. It's not that things change dramatically over time or that you're really heavily over consuming to gain 2 pounds a year every year consistently would just mean that you have a couple meals in surplus, or maybe you went on vacation and never ate in a deficit to even out those calories that you did overconsume. It's very easy to stumble and tumble and roll and keep bankrolling lots and lots of calories. It's the same thing that happens with debt. We're just predisposed to it. But again, you're not alone in this either. None of us like to know what we're actually eating. Okay. None of us are accustomed to that level of accountability. So that's a pretty normal human thing to do. It's also very easy to overeat in this crazy caloric environment. And that just is what it is. Okay. It's also a very good thing that it's easy to overeat, because if that wasn't the case, then we would die, like as a human race, to famine. So a huge part of the weight loss process is learning how to get out of your own way. And that is probably the most painful part of the process because of how we perceive it. We think that means we're bad, or that we were bad because we were uncontrolled, or that there's something wrong with me because I can't figure it out and I can't do this and it's really hard, when that just isn't the case at all. You just haven't acquired the skills yet. You haven't perfected the skills yet, and that's okay. And the only way to get better at it is to just never give up and to keep practicing and get better at it. The third thing and of this that I'll say, and final thing, is being in a calorie deficit is hard. It's an undoing process, okay? And I wish that you could just lose weight by like staying at maintenance, but you can't. That's not how the math works. It's like if you spent literally all of your money living paycheck to paycheck, but you magically expect yourself to somehow save. You're at maintenance. You're spending everything you have. You're not saving, but you're not going into debt. You're at maintenance. Why would you expect yourself to magically have a big savings? It's the same thought process here. It's just not how that works. But it doesn't mean that it's not hard. So you can make healthy changes, of course. You can change your body composition by eating at maintenance. You can make overall improvements to things like your mental health, even your blood work. But that doesn't mean you'll lose weight. To lose the excess body fat, to have it come off of you, you have to be in a caloric deficit to undo what you did. Okay? So just because you work out, you walk and eat healthy doesn't mean you're going to lose weight. It's not a guarantee. It's required to take care of your meat sack. It is literally the requirement to make sure that your meat sack stays in good functioning working condition. But you're not guaranteed to lose weight, and that sucks. I know, I understand. I validate this every day for my clients of, yep, it sucks. Keep going. Yeah, it fucking sucks. Keep going. Yep, it sucks. Keep going. That's kind of the internal monologue you have to have for yourself of like, yeah, this is going to be temporary and it's going to suck for a little bit, but I have to keep going. These things are wildly beneficial. The working out, exercising, improving your nutrient intake, fiber, protein, and actually part of the process of healthily implementing a calorie deficit, because there's definitely a healthy way to do it and an unhealthy way to do it. Of course, but it's also a requirement of being healthy, of taking care of yourself, of taking care of your meat sack. I'm sorry, that's just like my favorite thing to say. It's not my body. It's literally my sack of meat that I'm required to take care of. And the more I view it like that, the easier it is for me to take care of myself. All of those things are going to be required for you to take care of yourself long term. But you have to be in a calorie deficit, an energy deficit, in order to lose weight or to lose excess body fat. Okay. So here are some things to remind yourself of and kind of help change that internal monologue of, dang, this really sucks and I can't do it, into, okay, this sucks, but I can do it. Because that, I think, is the missing piece for most people when it comes to being successful with weight loss long term. Number one is weight loss is like a hike, okay? You hike in 10 miles, you got to hike out 10 miles, because I'm sorry, I can't afford a Helivac that's $30,000 out of the woods. I don't think that most people can afford that. So what we hike in, we hike out. Looking at it from a mathematical, less emotional, neutral perspective, you have to do it or your brain's going to devour you. Number two is that, and hear me in this because this really set me free from a lot, okay, is that your body composition is the compilation of all of the nutrition and movement choices you've made over your lifetime, not a couple of weeks. I'm going to say that again. Your body composition is the compilation of all of the nutrition and movement choices that you've made over your entire lifetime, not just a couple of weeks. And when you start looking at things from a macro level, you start to be able to slowly, appropriately adjust your lifelong inputs for your body and your meat sack instead of just the immediate ones. Changing your perspective from immediate gratification to long-term journey, long-term longevity, long-term inputs, long-term implementation is what will set you free. This is not going, of course, a calorie deficit is short term. You don't want to be in a deficit forever because you'll literally wither away to nothing. But the journey of health, the inputs of health, why people swing and yo-yo so much is because you actually never implemented long-term change. That's the rub. Number three is nutrition management and movement are always probably going to be part of your life in some capacity, just like managing your finances is. So the sooner you accept it, the better. Because I don't know about you, but I'm probably not going to hit the mega billion jackpot in life where I could just like not care about finances ever again. Even then, I would still care about finances and where I should donate and what I should invest in and how I should maintain my wealth long term. You gotta apply that here too. Just being I think that the whole food freedom and intuitive eating is a nice dream that maybe one day I could never, ever, ever, ever have to think about this to any capacity. But if you are not growing your own food and you are shopping at any standard grocery store, you're going to have to become accustomed to limitations, boundaries, and saying no. Because how our environment is designed from a capitalistic perspective is to get you to buy shit. It's to get you to consume as much as possible. And so this is it. You didn't make the rules. I didn't make the rules. Somebody else made those rules and we are just born into them. And so accepting that you're going to have to, at some capacity, probably manage your movement and your nutrition forever in some way, shape, or form. If that's just tracking your fiber, if that's just making sure you get enough protein, if that's literally just putting up boundaries with food, that falls into that category. Accepting it, embracing it, and moving forward is the best thing to do. Because trying to fight it, trying to be like, I wish I could just do whatever is comfortable for you. But maintain what standard of health, what standard you have for yourself on your journey in your individualistic walk, okay? Number 4, the process is supposed to be good. It's supposed to be positive, right? The process, the mindset to have is that you're taking care of yourself, that you're caring about yourself and your body. It's not about punishment. I think a lot of people, why they have this initial knee jerk of, oh my God, a calorie deficit, so archaic, so that's not woke, that's not progressive, that's not body positive. Yes, it is. I'm sorry, in this day and age, being intellectual and pro-science is apparently woke. It's apparently woke. Never thought that would happen, but apparently it is. And I'm going to be very honest with you, historically it is. Okay? Historically, being a part of the liberal arts, being a part of science, evidence, research is progressive. Duh. It's going away from the conventional conservative history and trying to have new advancements, a new way forward, a new path, accepting nuance, trying to push the boundaries of societal norms and standards. Hello. That's the point. That's literally the point. I digress. But the point is supposed to be a good thing. The whole reaction, like I said, to being anti-calorie deficit is usually stemming from misinformation about it, that you have to be in this deficit, grueling, eating nothing for the rest of your life. That's just not true. That's not true at all. Homegirl over here, me, I eat, okay? And my number one goal for most of my women who come to me looking for physique changes, who do not have a lot of body fat, or don't need to lose excess body fat, my goal with them is to get them eating as much as possible. Period. Point blank. I have most of my clients who are much smaller than me are eating much more than me, because they are getting to move more than me. Okay, because they have a different lifestyle than I do. That should be the goal. The goal is to literally become so metabolically healthy that you are a powerhouse and you are eating as much nutrient-dense food as possible, that you are just blowing through the berries and the vegetables and the lean meats, and that you are so active and so supercharged that you have to eat a lot or else you will lose the muscle mass that you've built. That's what I want for you. I want you to get to the point where you have so much lean muscle mass on your body that a cheat meal or a free meal or eating out doesn't really even matter, because you're so on plan and dedicated to your nutrition and your health all the other times that it's like a blip on the radar, okay? That it doesn't even pop on the radar. That's what I dream for everyone. That would be my utopia. But that's sadly not where we are today. Most people are highly undernourished. They do not eat a fruit or a vegetable most days, and they eat under 50 grams of protein a day. And they don't even hit 15 grams of fiber a day. Most Americans barely even get 9 grams of fiber a day, when we really should be all eating 25 plus grams a day of fiber. That's when I talk about a calorie deficit, that's the contextualization is, of course, we have to manage your calories, but we need to see fruit, vegetable, lean protein, healthy carbs like potatoes and rice, fibrous foods like beans and apples, like avocados, healthy fats. That's what I'm talking about. And so I think that understanding of changing your perspective, that I'm trying to better myself, I'm trying to better my body, I'm trying to literally change the composition of my meat sack so it presents differently down to a cellular level. That's where I want you to go. That is a neutral, clinical, and scientific way to look at your body. And it starts to really remove the emotional barriers that we have with food. And of course, if you have emotional issues or barriers or thoughts with food, seeking professional help for that is a good thing. It will help you see yourself better. Because if you hate yourself, you're not going to get there. You're just not. And that, again, I'm speaking from a very personal perspective. The thing that's held me back for so long in life, not just fitness or health, but literally everything, was that I literally hated myself. Taught to hate myself. You're not going to get anywhere if that's how you view everything. The final thing that I will tell you, where I see people be very successful in changing, doing a 180 with their health long term, okay, is practicing and mastering being less reactive, okay? Emotional maturity is why people fail or succeed in a calorie deficit and with overall health. When you see the scale go up, saying, that's okay, no big deal. when you look in the mirror and you're unhappy about something, saying, that's okay, I'm working on it, no big deal. And becoming, again, very less reactive and more positive, reinforcing to yourself, instead of looking at yourself and being like, oh my God, see, nothing has changed. We can't do anything. You're a failure. You're bad at this. See, the scale went up again. Everything you do never works. I can't believe a calorie deficit doesn't work. Eating your fruits and vegetables is bullshit. Like, I'm just going to go and eat whatever I want because nothing ever changes anyways. So, these things that I've been trying to do for a couple days, like, all this hard work for nothing. I just can't believe it. Do you see? Do you see the difference in saying, you know what? I'm really proud of myself of the changes that I've been making so far. And I know I love myself and I'm committed to myself and the promises I make to myself. So I'm just going to keep on pressing on. This feeling that I'm feeling right now, it's really uncomfortable. I really don't like it. It makes me feel bad about myself. But I'm going to choose to press on anyway. And I'm going to choose to commit to myself, to keep the promises I've made to myself, and to keep going in the face of failure, in the face of discomfort, in the face of pushback, in the face of defeat, in the face of hateful rhetoric, in the face of myself. I'm going to push through anyway. I'm going to go on my walk anyway. I'm going to eat my fruit and vegetables anyway, because my mood does not determine my actions. How I feel about my health does not determine the actions I'm going to take to try and manage my health. Do you see the difference? Building yourself up instead of tearing yourself down. That's why coaching is so vital. Every day having a positive reminder that you're good. You're a good person. You're doing a good job. You're putting in good effort. There's nothing wrong with you. You can do this. I believe in you. You can do hard things. I'm trying to get you to talk that way to yourself. Because what is it worth if you hate yourself into this? It's not going to work. It's not going to stick long term. So what are my final notes? Okay, my final notes of actions. What can you do? Simply put, of course, getting better at tracking. Most importantly, too, being very consistent and being more accurate with your tracking. Moving your body as much as possible and as consistently as possible in a way that you actually enjoy. But again, number one, if I had like a dying message to anyone out there, anyone at all, is just don't give up. Just keep going. When you fall, get back up. It will get better if you keep trying and you keep on the process each day. That's what matters most, is without fail, instead of beating yourself up and quitting, is not giving up on yourself. It's not about quitting the diet or not going to the gym for a period, whatever. It's about keeping promises that you made to yourself. It's about you and how you view yourself and what you think about yourself. That's why the calorie deficit feels like it sucks so bad, because it immediately reveals things about yourself that you've been trying to avoid, that you've been trying to hide for so long. It makes you face the music. And that's why it's so painful. That's why it's so difficult. Of course, you might be a little bit hungry. Of course, you might have to say no to some extra snacky bits. And of course, you might have to change the things that you've been eating. Of course, you're probably not going to get to eat out as much. Of course, you're going to have to wake up early and go on a walk. Of course, you're going to have to limit your screen time and get better with your mental health and focus on your sleep quality. Of course. Those are all the things required to make you feel better, to literally be a person, a functioning human being, to take care of your meat sack. But you know what you have to do to make all of that work and stick long term? You have to actually fucking like yourself. You have to like yourself. And you have to like living with the brain and whatever internal monologue that you have. And so if you're not treating yourself better, if you're not talking to yourself better in a nice, positive, encouraging way that helps you keep going, that helps you do the positive things of eating more fiber, of eating more protein, of having boundaries with unlimited access to endless amounts of food, then like, what's the point? Vanity? Oh my God. Vanity. Vanity is the point. No. Because if vanity is all you're looking for, you're never going to be happy. Losing weight will not make you like yourself more. It won't. Being strong as fuck, it's fun. Having muscles, it's cute. But the external validation of others, it's not going to make you like your own brain. It's not going to make you like yourself at all. Putting on makeup, making your hair cute, buying new clothes, it means nothing, because at the end of the day, you have to go home to you. And what does that home, what does that internal self look like? That's it. That's the question. That's the episode. What does it look like to you? And maybe it's not that the deficit doesn't work. Maybe there's internal cleanup that needs to happen. And you need a much more positive outlook and interaction with yourself before you even start to track a morsel of food. That's it. That's the episode. Thanks so much for tuning into this week's episode. I really appreciate it. Hope that it was encouraging to you, helpful to you, and helped you out. Of course, too, if you guys would, please go ahead and give me a little 5-star review. I am not against or groveling or asking. I will ask again. I would really appreciate it. It would help me a lot. And of course, you can find me on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. If you would like more free coaching resources or get the opportunity to interact with me or ask me any questions that you might have. I will catch you in next week's episode.